Hello again. So now let's talk about Git and GitHub for a little bit. I'm not going to give a full course on these topics, but I wanted to touch on a few things. So first of all, branching. So whether you're working alone or working on a team, using branches is really important because you want your sanity retained. So you really have to understand branching, how it works, and how to merge things in order to not cause a lot of stress and chaos, because it can happen. And it has happened to me a number of times where a person on my team does a merge very late after not merging for a long time and makes a mistake. And it takes hours to a day to figure out how to fix it. It's really, really something you don't want to have happen. You want to have good branching hygiene, which means make a branch for like a new feature, but don't go for a long, long time without merging out changes from the main branch to the feature branch, for example. You don't want to get the code so divergent that when you have to do a branch, it's very confusing. You want to do it more regularly. You want to keep up to date with whatever you're going to be merging back to. So anyway, so with these, with this branching lifestyle, there are different branching processes that you can use. I've come to prefer what's called the Git flow branch model. And you can look on YouTube. There's a nice, concise little visual demonstration of how that works. You can use a different one, but whatever it is, make sure that everybody on the team is all on the same page about what the practices are. I highly recommend deleting branches when done with them. I just looked at the project I just finished on and saw that one of the sub-projects had 60 branches. Now, this is my fault probably because I should have been more strict and insisted upon people deleting things, but my workload just kept me somewhere else, and I didn't pull off good leadership on that. So totally blew that one. But whenever I would go look, trying to figure out, okay, what's going on over here, it would be hard because I wouldn't know which branches were active, which ones weren't needed anymore. But some people like to make a branch and just have it there just in case, rather than merging it back. They're like hedging their bets for the future, but then they move on, and then those bets that they don't need anymore just stay there. So try to delete the branches when you're done with them. It's just, it makes it less stressful. I wanted to mention what I'll call the dangers of using the Git user interface on your machine. So it's often the case that I've had students who use the extensions for VS Code or just the Git UI to do the maneuvers they think are necessary, but they don't actually fully understand what's going on under the hood. And so they do the wrong thing. They just assume that this UI is going to protect them from badness, and it actually can do the opposite. So I never use the UIs. I just found a very small set of commands that I use from the command line. I know exactly what's going on at all times. It just works better for me. I'll show you those in the next slide. But just echoing what I said a minute ago, whatever branching model you use, you want to make sure that you don't have the situation where you're working on a branch for a long, long, long time, and other people are making changes to the main branch, lots of changes, and you're still working for a long time. And then you try to merge it, and it's really, really complicated. You don't want to do that. You want to merge more frequently. You want the code on the main branch and whatever feature branch you're working on, you want those to stay pretty close so that at any given point, the merge you're doing isn't complicated. Complicated merges are when mistakes are made and time is lost and stress is added. So one of my big things is I'm trying to minimize your stress. And so this very much fits in with there. There's been a lot of stress in my life with botched merges done very late in the game towards the deadline that caused all sorts of chaos. So that's when you don't want stress. So highly recommend that. So let's go to the next slide here, my essential Git commands. So I'm just going to list these out. So making a new branch, checking out that branch so that it becomes your working tree, pushing that new branch before you even add anything to it to GitHub so that it becomes a tracking branch. I'm going to do some coding. I'm going to add the file, maybe one or more files, and then I do a commit. Then I do a push. And then am I going to be able to see what's going on here? Oh, yes. To move this out of the way. And do a push and then a merge. And then I can delete the branch. So just with these, what are they, 8 commands? I don't think I've ever needed to use any other commands to do anything. So I really like, I will advocate that, sure, use the UIs if you want to, but first, use the command line to do all these things to make sure you really understand what's going on underneath the UI, because otherwise, stress. All right, I think that's it for Git, and I will see you next time. Well, I'm back. I realized I left something out. And so rather than redoing this whole video, I'm just going to have a little addendum here. What I missed is in this essential Git command slide. So what I forgot was, before I push, it might be the case that I need to do a Git pull first. And why might this be? 2 different reasons. If I'm working on a branch that I'm sharing with somebody else, then they may have made changes and pushed them to GitHub. And so if I try to do a push, I will be blocked. I'll need to do a Git pull first to merge those changes in. This can also happen if you are working on a branch alone, but for some reason you are working on different machines with that branch, which is what I wound up finding myself doing on my last project. I had workspaces for a particular branch on 3 different machines at one point, which was not optimal, but it just was what I needed to do. And so if I committed and pushed on one machine, I need to go to other machine and pull before I could push changes from there. So I have now corrected myself, and I think I will be able to sleep tonight.